Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unfamiliar Territory. I'm Callie Kais, and I'm joined here by my co-host Zimplfy.
How's it going?
This week, we're gonna go ahead and interview Zimplfy and his use of Ephemerate and familiars, and go deep on that topic. Are you excited?
Sure am.
So, in the sanctuary time, while I was trying to flicker my way to victory, you decided that you basically didn't even want to play it. And you've been playing a deck you called Blue-White FU, or basically Blue-White Hardlock Control. Is that correct?
Yep.
So, what led you down that line?
So whenever Sanctuary came out, I just started getting back into the format. So, a few months passed. It's like February, March, around that time. And I was kind of learning familiars, and I wasn't a huge fan of Sanctuary at that time because you had to really restrict your mana, and you had to play like 6 fetch lands, 3 Sanctuary, and you had a bunch of these tap lands. So it got really awkward, and you didn't really do much for the first few turns. So I kind of realized, what if we make this more of a control shell? So I ended up cutting Sanctuary, and I played Tranquil Cove instead. And the reason I played Tranquil Cove was because, as you see, we're playing 4 Ephemerate. And we kind of need to cast multiple of those and all of our other white cards and blue cards at the same time. So that's why I played Tranquil Cove. And I also wanted to play Ephemerate because at that time there's a lot of heroic and mono black. And a lot of the time, if you get Ephemerate down, you can kind of just win the game against those kinds of decks. So that's kind of why I ended up making Blue-White FU. And I ended up winning Chocolate Popper Saturdays a few times with it, and it's kind of stuck by my side ever since.
Yeah, I think you won the first time you took it to that, right?
That's correct.
And then like 3 times in a row?
I won the first time, and then I kind of got bored of it for a little bit. And then I was like, you know what, let's play it again. And then I won 4 in a row. And
nice.
Yeah, all history from there.
So, do you think that one of the reasons that you wanted to play this Ephemerate shell instead of trying to flicker combo people was because you didn't want to do repetitive flicker combos? Or do you think you were going to time out doing that?
Well, I kind of got used to flicker combos. They wasn't that hard on me because I'm very fast at clicking. But I just didn't really like the playstyle that it gave, because you really want to focus on comboing, and then you had this dead card and Sage's Road Denizen. So I really wasn't a huge fan of that, and I wanted to maximize as many cards as possible. So, like in this list, I have 0 dead cards, and pretty much every single non-land is a good draw most of the time. Instead of like in Sanctuary fans back in the day, you had stuff like Sage's Road Denizen, which wasn't good if you didn't have the combo. So that's
back in the day, a month ago.
Yeah.
Oh, how time has flied.
It has. Rest in peace, Sanctuary.
In this deck, you do you think that like the average person might actually run into a timeout scenario as they're just throwing Ephemerates around?
It kind of depends, I guess. Like, you kind of have to get used to muscle memory with where your triggers go and all that. But I think if you're getting into familiars, it's much easier to play. But if you're like very used to Magic Online interface and all that other stuff, maybe you want to play Sanctuary familiars or regular familiars now with Sage's Road Denizen.
Yeah. So let's see. We got 4 Ephemerates, and then you have 4 Seagate, 4 Moldrifter, and 2 Stonehorns. So there's like 10 targets there, but then you have the one of Aether Snipe. You want to explain why you like that card, and was it just for fun, or was it just like so much value when you get there, but you only ever use it a little bit?
Ooh, I love my Aether Snipe. Alright, so I'm going to go into a little bit of detail why I love this card. I think I wasn't the one that found it. I believe it was Colossi, or someone in the fans Discord. I believe it was Colossi that brought it up when I was making the deck.
Yeah, I think he probably brought it up because he really liked that Elementals Flicker deck that Caleb Gannon did.
Yeah, he was doing like the Bant Elementals deck. So I was like, you know what? Let's try it. So I put it in the deck. I was playing 3 at the time because why not? Let's just see how it goes. and I was like, wow, this is really good because for its rate, you're paying either 3 mana for a boomerang, or you're paying 4 mana for a 4/4 that bounces 3 things. Yeah, and then
So
it's just value from there.
is that like taking the place of a snap then?
Sorta, yeah.
Because you only have 3 snaps here, and then 1 Aether Snipe. So I can see that how that makes sense.
Yeah, in my original list, I believe I played 4 Snap and 3 Aether Snipe, but I eventually went down to 1 Aether Snipe, and that's kind of like the whole thing of at FU. It kind of has to play Aether Snipe. I haven't really, I haven't really played it.
That makes the deck. You're just like, I have a 4/4 and you have nothing to. You can't. You're just.
That's
you're
what it
not.
does. Because like the funny thing about it is that it's like actually really good sometimes. It's just a good beater, which is pretty
Well, yeah.
funny.
I mean, a 4/4 is like obviously it's a 5-turn clock right away.
Yeah.
And then a lot of decks are not going to be able to deal with that coming in, especially with all the value. Get on the value train.
Like whenever I played 3, it was like kind of a dead card sometimes, but it was pretty funny when you just cast Aether Snipe and bounce your Muldrifter, and then play your Muldrifter, kind of as like a pseudo snap, except you also get a 4/4.
Oh wow! So another thing I like about this list, because it's a control deck and you're trying to lock out the opponent and tilt them, is that you have alpha lands and mismatched Muldrifters.
You used to have mismatched Muldrifters. Used to.
Now you have. And then are the Ephemerates in this list are all foil, but they're the only foils in the list, and the flicker.
Hey, that's what it's there for, just to tilt.
Yeah, I think this is good for that. So the thing is, this deck here was powerful enough to start winning tournaments. I mean, did you ever take it to the leagues and stuff? Did you have any good results in the leagues?
Yeah, I did play a lot of leagues with the deck. I think probably around 15 to 20. And I had this long streak where I just went 3-2, and I think it was like 11 3-2s in a row, and I couldn't get the 4-1 for the life of me. But I did get a couple 4-1s when I first made the deck.
So what do you think about this in the current meta? Because is the current meta more powerful or less powerful than the Sanctuary meta?
I think it's probably good in the meta, mostly for the fact that there's a lot of mono black control and fairies around right now, which this deck has a really good matchup against.
Isn't Ephemerate bad against Spellstutter Sprite?
It can be, but if they tap out, for example, right? Let's say you got like turn 2 familiar, and they're just like playing Augur Bolus, or they're attacking with a ninja, you can just play Muldrifter and Ephemerate, and then pretty much win from there. Usually when you draw 6 cards against the deck that's trying to 1-for-1 you, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Another thing, I've been playing a little bit of Ephemerate in my list right now is when you have a lot of these flickers, you don't have to protect the Ephemerate quite as much. You can just be kind of free rolling it, where you just evoke the Muldrifter and flicker it, and then you played 2 2-for-1s, I guess. No, there's a 3-for-1 and a 2-for-1 right there. So you've already 5-for-2'd, and then they kill your Muldrifter, but it doesn't really matter because it's like still 6-for-2. I don't know. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's you can play pretty aggressive with your flickers and ephemerates for sure.
And
Just
this deck seems like super solid versus burn with Lone Missionary. You got 3 of them in the board, which is also going to help versus something like Mono Black Control, because they've got more creatures to eat and they can't really deal with your life total.
Yeah, I actually think this Familiar's version probably is like the worst burn matchup with all of them combined. Like, let's say like regular Flicker Familiars.
Why?
Reason for that is look at all these.
You're playing more white spells?
Yeah, there's a lot. You got Tranquil Coves and Chanceries and stuff, so you're not really doing much on like your first couple turns, so they can like really punish you for that, and you really need a Faithful in game 1. And
yeah, I guess a hand with 2 Tranquil Coves, you're pretty hosed.
yeah, and you're also like really focused on getting the lock, which usually happens on like turn 7, so you're probably dead by then. But I did have a good matchup against Burn anyway, so.
It feels like you could just, cut two Stonehorns, two Deep Analysis, Aether Snipe for three negates and two Blue Elemental Blast, and then maybe two counterspells or something for three, and a Prohibit for three Lone Missionary, and then they could never touch you.
Yeah, I mean that's the reason I started playing Lone Missionary. Was
Yeah.
it's just good rate with Ephemerate. Yeah, it
And
rhymes.
it's been yeah. And then you go ahead and you gain 12 life on turn 3.
Yeah, that's
So-
the best part.
The game is over.
Oh, you tapped out. Looks like I'm just gonna gain 12 now. Nice burn deck you have there.
So before we move on to what you're doing now, in this list you have a Sage and Rodenizen in the board and one Flicker. Can you go into that and how that played out?
So originally I played No Sages Row, right? But the reason I wanted to put it in there was just for the Boros decks, because usually those games go long enough to where if you have a dead card in your deck, it doesn't really affect the game that much, once you're both in top deck mode. So usually the point is that you're gonna have to stalemate a lot of the time, right? They're gonna have a bunch of Core Skyfishers, and you're gonna have a bunch of Mole Drifters and Aether Snipes and stuff. But what you want to do later in the game is just dig for your Sage Denizen, and then play Ghostly Flicker on Archaeomancer and Island, and then just protect your Ghostly Flicker. So if they have, like, let's say they have a bunch of Pyroblasts, you just hold Ephemerates and counterspells and stuff. So that's the reason I played Sage Denizen, was just like a faster way of killing Boros. And my main win con...
Would you bring it in versus Tron?
Yeah, also against Tron. Because we have a lot of bad cards against them, like Snaps and Faithfuls and stuff, so it's nice to have a combo potential against them. And it's also it's much faster than just snapping the board. Much faster than snapping the board.
Yeah, sometimes against, definitely for Boros, like snapping their board is going to take a long time, and Boros players are used to not conceding because their deck is slow. So that's one of those things you have to watch out for in the leagues. Is like, if I'm playing against somebody that's playing a slow deck, they're probably going to do all they can to drain my clock.
Yep, that's most
So
of
you
the
need
main
a
reason I put
fast
them in.
out. For sure. What else is going on? You got the gut shots for the fairy lists. Echoing Truth is in there. Seems pretty stock otherwise.
Yeah.
So from there, you hold the title of the first 5-0 post Sanctuary with Familiars. Do you want to go into how you changed things, because it doesn't look very much changed. You switched an Ephemerate for a Flicker. You dropped a counterspell for an Echoing Truth main, and then you went up a Deep Analysis. That's pretty much it. It is the same. Well, the mana base is more islands, but still a lot of regular lands and not a lot of fetches. How did you come on this, and why is it different?
So the reason I wanted to play this version of the deck was mostly for the reason I really want the combo in this meta. In this meta specifically, there's a lot of aggro decks. So, having Turbo Snap is very, very efficient, more than just ephemerating and trying to lock them, I think. So the reason I started going this one as well is I just really like playing the combo right now, just in general. I think it's very fun to just flicker your Mancers and then kind of just do it all. And that's kind of why I played Pirates there for a little bit.
Well, Pirates was like, okay, now you get to just completely dominate the game once you get that going. But Pirates was a dead card, and then so maybe, with 3 Ephemerates there, you're adding a lot of power. Even though you don't have an infinite combo, it's like, okay, I can't draw my entire deck right now, but I can draw 6 cards now and 4 more cards next turn. So
yeah, it definitely follows
quite a bit.
It definitely follows my philosophy of trying to not have as many dead cards as possible. So that's why I also try to do with this list, and just try to go combo, but also try to control the board at the same time, and try to always have stuff in my hand to cast.
But here you're basically saying that your main deck is geared against an aggro deck in which you have Stonehorn Dignitaries, but you have the Sage Zero Denizen in the board. And then are you bringing that in still against Boros and Tron?
Correct. Still against Boros and Tron because those games go on for way too long, and I don't want to lose to them because of time.
So it's kind of like it's a meta call, but then let's say the meta is mostly Boros and Tron. What would you take out of the main to put Sage Zero Denizen in the main? Just the Stonehorn?
Yeah,
But
probably
you need a Stonehorn versus Boros then, I guess, right?
Actually, it'd probably just be like a Snap or Deep Analysis.
I think when I was playing at the beginning of the Sanctuary meta, I was playing only 2 Snap and 1 Echoing Truth. And since you only have 4 Chanceries, maybe that is something that you could do, is just cut a Snap for a Sage Zero main and then kind of like be ahead on clock a lot of time.
Maybe. But like I
With
said...
the Ephemerate, you can like accelerate through your deck pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's true. But like I said, I just don't like having a dead card against something like aggro. Where it's kind of just like 3 mana 2/3, it's not really gonna do a whole lot. So you could just like main deck it if you wanted, like if you have like a Boros heavy meta. But right now I think the meta is just so diverse that it doesn't really matter.
Makes a lot of sense. So I've been running a deck that is very different in the mana base. So I have 5 fetches, and then 6 bounce lands, and no Tranquil Coves and 2 plains, and then the rest islands. Actually, I'm playing a mountain for a pyro on the board, but that's kind of like style or whatever you want to like work on. But we're doing the same thing with like excludes here mostly for like Boros, Monarch, Mono Black Control, and then Tron. And then you have negates, or basically your catch-all counterspell, which, Calpine was the one that was pushing for that a lot, and then and the more you go on, it's like I don't even want Dispel anymore. I need negate because you need something that's going to be managing way more of the threats.
Yeah, I think Glendelock, I hope I pronounced that correct, but he was also a fan of playing Dispel. But the thing I just don't like about Dispel is that, it doesn't hit Journey, it doesn't hit Edicts, which are 2 really important cards. Yeah, Swipe 2. So
Elf spell, all the draw spells like Winding Way.
Yeah, Longbow. It doesn't hit a lot of the things in the meta, which is something I don't really like. And against...
Yeah, it's like protecting your familiar from getting countered.
Yeah.
But then most of the decks that are going to counter your familiar on turn 3 are Sprite decks, and Dispel is going to not work there.
Yeah. I mean, neither is Negate. But...
It's true. But you have Prohibit in the main. You just don't run a familiar out into an obvious spell setter Sprite.
Yeah, but
don't do it.
I like Negate is just like a good old catch-all against pretty much every deck in the meta, which is always nice.
Yeah.
Like,
because it's like... Oh. I think another thing that's like where it's a sleeper card is against Burn, because so many of their cards are built to play around Dispel.
Yes. Yeah. Like, half of their spells are just like sorcery, so like Dispel really isn't that great.
Yeah.
Like, sure, it might save you from like a Pyroblast, but at that point you're just gonna have a familiar out, and Negate does the same thing, which is always nice. And like, the huge upside against Negate, or the huge upside with Negate, is that you can pretty much board in against any deck, which is just amazing. Like against...
That's true.
Against walls, you can bring it in. Actually, no, not against walls. Against like Monarch, you can bring it in. Against Stompy, you can bring it in.
Negate against walls. So what do we know about counterspell? You have 1 counterspell here, and then you have a lot of islands. I don't even know how many. 10? 1, 2, 3.
I think it's 9.
9, and then 2 coves, so that's 11 lands that can tap for blue. So do you normally are holding up counterspell in turn 2, or is it just a thing that's like an end game lock?
It's just an end game lock. I think it's mostly there's like a catch-all, especially against stuff like Tron, where kind of like,
yeah, it was something I really liked.
They don't expect it,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna jam my Mole Drifter. Oh wait, you have a counterspell, and now I Ephemerate, get back my counterspell, and then you're kind of just locked from there.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like does so much work, but you can't really play two of them in this list.
Yeah,
There's
that's
just not a lot.
you could, but like I
It's
said,
sketchy.
yeah, like I said, it's kind of focused on comboing too, so it kind of gets a bit sketchy there. I did try two counterspell and two prohibit, but I think one counterspell and two prohibit is probably just correct.
Yeah, because it's more like disruption
Yeah.
in this. So here you have an Echoing Truth over the fourth snap. Is that just because you don't have the Sage Romaine?
No, I just like Echoing Truth as a catch-all, because I know you used to play it back in the day, and
Yeah.
I've been saying that a lot. My bad, but like back in Sanctuary, you played it a lot, and I was like, oh wait, this is pretty good right now because it can kill tokens against Boros, or it can just bounce an army of Skyfishers, and then you can kind of like open the line to Ephemerate and like counter all of them, or you can like
Yeah, I think
or you can just
I
like
think
bounce
that
a
like
longbow.
I think you need Ephemerate. Well, in order to play like this Echoing Truth, you can't lean into the bounce lines as much, which is why you're on 4, which makes sense. Echoing Truth I like a lot because you can really hose a Boros Monarch player when you like Echoing Truth the journeys and get all your familiars back and then just start locking them out. But can you go over how, like what you mean by comboing somebody out with this deck since you don't have Sage Romaine?
Yeah. So the main combo here is to just snap their board as fast as possible, and in the meantime, you can of course control them. But like a blue-white FU, for example, right? The whole point was just lock them out, and then you had snap as like a backup if you really needed to use it. But in this list specifically, the combo here is you can snap them as fast as possible, or you can lock them as fast as possible with Double Mancer, or you can deck them as fast as possible. You can just do as whatever thing you want as fast as possible with like your Ephemerate and Mole Drifter to draw 6, or flicker your Mancers and Seagates to just draw a bunch of cards. So the whole point is just to dig through your deck as fast as possible and then try to snap them out and find a way to win.
My other question is why do you have a 3-1 split of Barons and Wilds?
I don't know how to build a mana base. That's why.
You
That's the reason why.
just did it, just put it there and see what happens.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself getting flooded and having problems or no?
No, not really. I think I'm just a fan of Ash Barons because it works really well with bounce lands, and it's a land like untapped sometimes, which is always nice.
Yeah. Sometimes it's really nice to just be able to play it, get your stuff done, and then later on buy it back with a Chancery or something like that.
Yeah.
I also see that you don't have a Mortuary Mire here.
Oh,
I just noticed that.
In this list, I did not play Mortuary Mire. Next one.
It's like, uh-oh.
Yeah, Blue White FU, and this one, I did not play Mortuary Mire, and I actually almost came up against Elves, because I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm just going to Stonehorn lock them, and then I'm going to prohibit all their longbows. Easy win. Oh, wait, I might deck myself now. And I was like, how do I win now? And they just scooped. They just scooped. They didn't know I could almost deck myself. So that was nice.
You're lucky. Every time I've seen Racer Man, they've been playing Pestilence, so maybe they were just like tired of playing elves and losing.
Maybe.
That's funny. I registered a list with the wrong Sages row. There's like something called Sages Row Savant, which is a 2-1.
Oh, yeah.
And it says when you play a blue spell, scry 1 or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's not good. So everyone makes mistakes. It's important to look over your list. So what did you take out for a Mortuary Mire then? Just, you still didn't.
I could have Trigger Cove.
Okay, so now you're playing same as the 5-0 list basically, or did you change the sideboard around?
Um, so I changed a few things. So I ended up cutting Counterspell, mostly because I just like Prohibit a little bit more, because it's more flexible. Because Counterspell is kind of just like, oh wait, it can get kind of clunky in your hand. So I ended up cutting it, but it's kind of a pain against Tron now since you don't have it. But I don't feel like I'm gonna win that matchup anyways. But I ended up cutting Trickle Cove for Mortuary Mire, and the reason for that, like I said, is there's a lot of the time where you can just have almost 5 cards in the deck, and you kind of just need to like discard a creature when you have 8 cards, and then you can flicker Archaeomancer or Mortuary Mire, put it back on top, and then never deck out. So it's kind of like a mini sanctuary, which I like.
Yeah, it's funny because Sanctuary Flicker combo kind of taught me how to use Mortuary Mire better, which is silly, but so now like I'll Flicker Mire on upkeep or something to draw my creature, stuff like that, or at the end their end step to draw the creature, just or Flicker it on my upkeep to draw it without having to like spend a card to draw it, and like, but you also have a counter backup. Do you think that Tron is like unwinnable with this list, or do you just kind of like couldn't you just put Counterspell back in over Prohibit?
You could, if you wanted to beat Tron, I would play 2 Counterspell and 2 Prohibit, if they cut a snap. But I haven't seen that much Tron in leagues, so if I play against it, then whatever. I'll probably lose, but I'm not gonna ruin my main deck just to beat Tron, which kind of says something about Tron right now. I think I kind of have to like build my deck specifically to beat it, which is I'm not gonna do. So that's why I'm playing 3 Prohibit.
So which of these decks you said you like Flicker comboing now more? What made you like it more now than in the Sanctuary time? Was it just because you didn't want to do the Sanctuary loops?
I think it's because now it's just hard to pilot the deck. It's what it feels like. Because like with Sanctuary, you're like, oh yeah, I just need to get this and that. If it's the repetitive thing, or just flickering Muldrifter for like 5 minutes, and then you're stage drawing them for another 5 minutes. I'm exaggerating, but that's what it feels like. You kind of just it's kind of repetitive gameplay. But with this, it's kind of like you're trying to figure out what you need to get, and then you kind of play like mind games a little bit. It's pretty. I feel like it's a bit more difficult to pilot the deck now, which is what I like. The challenge
Yeah,
is
that's
always
something
nice.
that I didn't. Yeah, that's something I didn't think about. Is that the repetitive gameplay aspect? Like it was super powerful to just have like turn 5 I win, but you also no one's gonna scoop to you because they don't. They have to take the edge, and then you're just stuck there for 8 minutes until you win. Like I had matches where I had the combo after 2 minutes of gameplay, like 23 minutes on the clock, and then I won at 15:30 left because my opponent just sat there and waited. It's like, okay,
Yeah, and
if you say so.
don't get me wrong, I think Sanctuary Fans was definitely the best version, like 100%. But it was just like very repetitive, and you just did the same stuff over and over and over.
I've been looking into Pioneer on the side because they actually have showcases, and um, there's 2 versions of Lotus after Underworld Breach got banned, and one is like non deterministic combo where you're just trying to like build mana and like work up to a big expansion explosion and shoot them in the face and then win, but you might not make it. And then the other one is make 14 mana, wish for omniscience, wish for enter the infinite, win. And it's just, it doesn't feel the same. It's like pretty boring. So I understand now that you say it out loud, like why that's the case. 'Cause I was kind of like feeling the same. I kind of want the am I gonna make it feel, I guess, instead of just having it's instead of just having your heart beat faster because you're not able to click fast enough, just waiting.
Yeah, Pirates Fans is definitely like Lotus Breach where it's like, oh, am I gonna get it? Am I gonna get it? Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. Well, honestly, I wonder. What do you think? Would you play Prosperous Pirates over, like, let's say, two cards in this list, like maybe an Ephemerate and a Deep Analysis, not Ephemerate, like a Prohibit and a Deep Analysis for two Prosperous Pirates, if you could right-click the clue and say all of these sacrifice for X?
I haven't had a problem with time with Prosperous Pirates, so I would say no.
Huh. What if you could just put one in the deck? Would one be worth it or not?
Probably not, because, like I said, it's kind of like Sage Road Ensign, where it's kind of just a dead card. And, like, it's not that good with Ephemerate.
Well, we were still thinking really kind of leaning into Prosperous Pirates when we interviewed 420 Dragon. So how quickly did you come off of it after that? Did his words inspire you? Or did you, like, think about it and test it some more and then go, okay, you're probably right?
I think I just took 150 with this list. I was like, yep, I think I'm done with Pirates.
Like, never change. Stick to what works.
Yeah, I only got 3 twos, I think, with Prosperous Pirates. So I was like, yeah, this is fine. It's not like impressing me a whole lot. It was good, but it had like these really clunky hands where you had like 3 lands and Prosperous Pirates, and it was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But like this is
it's really all about. Yeah, it's just like when you make infinite mana and you get to draw everything and just have everything, it's really satisfying. So
yeah, that's like the
can't
best
fault
part.
for somebody for wanting to do that.
Yeah, the best part was definitely just getting like, oh, yep, I win.
I have 700 shiny tokens.
I win the game. And it was like the reason that I like started playing Pirates too was it was supposed to be the replacement of Sanctuary, because it does the same thing as a Sanctuary, except it's a creature it can be interacted with.
That's one of the things that started making me play Ephemerates again. Like when I first started playing Familiars after the ban, I was just playing 3 flicker lists again, and you just kind of like stalled out, and you didn't have the draw power where you could just like evoke a Drifter and then flicker Drifter Sanctuary. So like on 6 mana, you could like play a Drifter that draws 3 cards for 5 mana, like sneaky things like that. So now Ephemerate like kind of does like a subset of what Sanctuary could do, where you're like buying back cards for relatively free, and then you're accelerating your draw so much. So I think that leaning into it is probably the best possible thing we could be doing. I don't know about playing 3, but I can understand where you're coming from. I just like having faithfuls to like manage aggro.
Yeah, I do like Faithful a lot for sure, but I think in this list where you can just draw through your deck, like I said, like super fast, aggro's really not that hard when you just get like down a Stonehorn and protect it. But yeah, you could get not drawn, and that kind of sucks.
So do you just lose game 1 against Boros here? Because you just have to snap every single token? And then hopefully counter them out?
No, I do not snap against Boros game 1, I just DA them to death.
What if they draw into their burn spells?
Well, you probably have a Faithful out by then. You probably both have like...
Shoot.
You probably have like 10 cards in deck, and you have like a bajillion million mana, so...
So you basically just play so fast that you're ahead on clock, and then
try to be
keep building up mana until you get to the point where you can like Ephemerate your Arcane-Mancer and Deep Analysis them a couple of times every turn. They're drawing like 6 to 7, and then it doesn't matter how many birds they have because you've got the Stonehorn lock, so you just have to manage the eight burn spells.
Pretty much. That's how you do it. You just gotta DA them to death. Or hope they concede by decking out. Anyways with Monarch.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, they like play the Monarch, and then you're like, gotcha.
Easy win now. Thanks for saving us time. And also, I think one thing to point out, like the reason I moved to Ephemerate, was there's so much Ephemerate in the meta right now. Like you got Jeskai Ephemerate, you got 4-color Ephemerate, you have Tron, and you kind of need to catch up with them. Like, With
Yeah.
pirates, they just have so much interaction where it's like, oh, okay, this is not going to go anywhere. And then you have like no cards with
Yeah,
hand.
you can't really like you can't land the whole thing,
Yeah.
and everyone, you know.
They're just going to like spread your dude and you're like, oh, shit, I lose.
What do you feel the matchup is like against the Ephemerate decks?
Well, I think probably have a bad matchup against them, but at least it's not as bad as Tron, because that deck is just Tronless Tron. And it's kind of slow too, so you can probably, like, if you can get down like a Mole Drifter and Ephemerate, you'll probably be ahead for a little bit. And it mostly depends on
Yeah.
the ornaments they're playing too. Because ornament could be a huge pain.
Yeah.
If they play like
Basically-
3, you're probably screwed, but if they play like 2, you might be fine. So
Basically, I found like you're probably not going to win because you can like hold your Sunscape hoping that you can sneak it under a counterspell, but then they just kill it with Scred, and then they'll counter something else, and you don't have enough ways to like manage the board because all of their stuff is so cheap because they don't have any way to cost reduce it, so they have like all this cheap interaction and things. It's a really huge pain.
it's really
The only way
reminiscent.
that I've found is like lots of dispels and lots of pyros and stuff, but
Yeah, Pyro's definitely good against them. I just don't feel like spending a slot on red mana where my mana's already kind of weird as it is, just to play Pyroblast.
did you experiment with thriving at all?
When it first came out, yes. I did try it out with Blue White FU, and I ended up going top 8 in PCT. If you don't know what PCT is, it's Pop Classic Tuesdays on Guiding.com. It's happens every Tuesdays, and yeah, I top 8'd that event. I believe I lost in the quarterfinals to Slivers. I believe. Yeah, I think that's
Do you
right.
think that the thriving isles are just too slow,
No.
or just in?
They were great. I played like 5 Thriving Lands because it was like day 1 when they first came out. So I had like 3 Thriving Isle, and then 2 Thriving Heath, and I was able to play like Gorilla Shaman and Pyroblast on the sideboard. And it was amazing because like
I guess you could also play like Weather the Storm and stuff like that, and just go full rainbow sideboard.
yeah, you could if you wanted. You could what I did was like I just made my bad matchups much better, and like nobody expected it either. Because like against Affinity now, it was like, oh yeah, I'm favored now. And then against Blue decks, I was like, okay, this is a free win because I have Pyroblasts. It's great.
Have you considered trying to do that in this kind of list?
It's definitely worth
And
it.
just kind of like go no fetches or something weird like that?
You know, it's probably worth a shot. But with 4 Chancery, it's really, really weird. Because you're playing like 9 tap lands. If let's say you cut the fetches, right? You're playing like 9 tap lands, and you're playing Thriving Lands. Let's say you have a hand with like Thriving Land and Chancery, right? You play your Thriving Land,
Yeah, that's terrible.
and then you Chancery it, and you're just like a turn behind. You're practically on
Well-
the draw.
So let's look at the list. You have 3 snaps and an Echoing Truth. And let's say you went to 2 snaps, Echoing Truth. One of those snaps becomes a counterspell. Now you have 4 counterspells in the main deck. Would that make it so that you don't even need to play the Chanceries? You just play Thriving Isles and Plains?
Maybe. I just like the consistency of Chancery, where you can just have hands with like 2 lands, but one of them's a Chancery, so it can kind of work out. I can see going down to 1 Chancery though, for sure.
Every single time that I went down to 1 Chancery with Sanctuary Familiars, it was in my opening hand.
Yeah, that's like
It never failed.
yeah, it happens
It
with
was
me a
always
lot
there.
too. I don't get it. It happens all the time. It's like, oh yeah,
Hi.
okay, I'll get my singleton, Echoing Truth like all the time. It's so weird. The shuffler.
I think maybe you just notice it more. You gotta sign one of the cards so you always know which one it is.
I'm just gonna play.
Or really, really lean into this. Every other card is different thing.
That's a new deck idea now for Magic Online. Sir Bullet Fams.
Silver Bullet Familiars.
You always get your Silver Bullets because the shuffler always gives it to you. Yeah, that big brain tech right here. We are breaking the meta.
I can see that. I think there is some possibility of using the thriving lands to like make your whole deck super consistent, where it's like it's like 6 or 8 thriving lands, and then just islands, and then a mortuary mire or something stupid. But the problem is that you actually do need the shuffling, because if you're playing something like Seagate Oracle or Preordain, there's stuff that you don't need now, but you need again later, and if you put it on the bottom of the deck, it's going to be a problem. So I don't really know how to like manage that. Maybe you could like play 4 Preordain, 2 Ponder, and then like 2 fetches, and play 20 lands. That might be good, because then you've got like all this consistency with the cantrips. You could like cut something else and then kind of like lean into that. It just seems like an option. I don't know how many thrivings we could play, but you only want like 1 planes at that point. The problem that I found with having the thrivings is that, like you said, they're super duper slow, and when you already are in the late game, if you draw a thriving land, it's like really brutal. So one of the things that I liked when I was trying thriving lands was using compulsive researches to ditch them later when I didn't need the colors. I don't know. I think that might be an evolution possibly we could go through.
Yeah, I think thriving lands are definitely worth a shot right now. Like if Tron becomes more popular, we can definitely transition to thriving lands.
So, moral of the story right now is Ephemerate is a really, really good card, I think. And that's kind of like what we're seeing in the meta, is that Ephemerate is kind of ruling the day at this point. Even though Tron is only playing 1, it's still like a really big part of what they're doing. And I think that the Familiars decks kind of need Ephemerate in order to survive at this point. So in this list you had 3 Faithful, your Aether Snipe, Flicker. Oh. I think maybe your Swamp and Mountain was... So you went up to 5 Thrivings there. And you still had 3 Chanceries. And it was fine?
I think I would cut a Chancery now.
Do you think that you would still have 3 Ash Barons, or just 2?
I think 3 is fine. Like you said, I think shuffling is pretty important.
We have to meet up with somebody who knows their math. And handle it from there.
like I said, I'm really bad with mana bases, so
You just play by feel.
yeah.
4 cantrips, some lands. It's enough.
Speaking of cantrips, I hate cantrips. 4 Preordain
You don't
always.
like drawing cards. That's the problem.
I don't. Well, I like drawing cards. I just don't like filtering for cards. The best way to do it is to just always have it. Why play cantrips?
Because Ephemerate makes it so you don't have to have it now. You can have it in the next 10 cards. You'll get there.
Yeah, it's easy. Like, why play cantrips so you can just draw 10,000 cards with Ephemerate?
I was playing versus Slivers, and I think like this shows the power. Like part of the things that the deck is doing is you've made it so that you have like these early Archaeomancers versus waiting to get a wall online, and like Bloodpet was saying, the meta game is that the games themselves are faster. You kind of have to like be on board and doing things faster. So maybe like wall, snap wall, play wall with like 2 bounce lands and 2 familiars is not good enough anymore to like win the game, because you're never even going to get to that point. So 3 Archaeomancers is maybe just the way to go. Right now I have 2 Archaeomancers and 1 wall, just to kind of have that option. And because since I'm playing 6 bounce lands anyway. But I had an opportunity versus Slivers where I went like turn 1 Island, turn 2 Chancery, turn 3 Familiar, Snap Your Lord, play... Or no, I didn't play Familiar. I just went Snap Your Lord on turn 3, because I went first. Play Archaeomancer, get back Snap. Then they replayed the Lord. Then I snapped it, Ephemerated, snapped the next thing, and then they just like can't do anything. because you're on board and you've got all your flickering going on really quick.
Yeah, but doing that against the wall is a lot. It's just like, I'm going to keep a hand with double snap any day.
Yeah,
It just
I
saves
think
so much time.
the snaps are so good at disrupting like early game decks, especially in combination with some bounce lands and an Ephemerate and Archaeomancer. But I did have problems like actually casting it, but maybe that's because I have so many bounce lands.
Maybe. Like, not only is it a ritual, it's also just like a time walk sometimes, which is amazing.
Yeah, I like to say that Snap is kind of like a shapeshifter card in the deck because, if you snap a Seagate Oracle, it's a Sleight of Hand. If you snap a Stonehorn, it's a Fog. If you snap an Archaeomancer, it's a free spell. It's a tutor. If you snap a Muldrifter, it's a draw. It's a 2-mana draw 2. Just crazy.
Now I want to play Force Snap.
Yeah, it does everything, and there's times when you draw 15 to 20 cards just from like Drifter Snap Drifter. Crazy things happening.
Yeah. Love me some
But
Snap.
I think Echoing Truth is probably the way to go if you don't have a Sage's Redenizen main, because you can't be without a way to deal with whatever is going to stop you from getting your Muldrifter beatdowns or getting your lock online.
Yeah, also the cool thing about E-Truth is that you can just bounce your own Muldrifters and then recast them.
Yeah, the best was I Echoing Truth 4 Seagate Oracles one game. I think it was the peak Echoing Truth.
I remember one time
Like-
we played against each other and you like snapped a familiar and then
I Echoing Truth your familiar and
Yeah.
then bounced my familiar, and I was like, that didn't work out.
Yeah, that's the bad part about Echoing Truth is that it also bounces their stuff.
But then I did learn from that, and then I played against Tron, and they were ephemerating Muldrifter, and I had a Muldrifter in play, so I said, okay, we'll just Echoing Truth them, and I'll replay mine. Sure, it's fair. So we talked about how Dispel was maybe not the correct counterspell, but here in this deck you are playing Dispel in sideboard. I'm the one I'm looking at. But you don't even have a Sage Rodenizen in the list at all.
Yeah, so I wanted to try something else this time and just like, so I never had any problems with time. We'll get back to that later. That was a bit ironic though. I never had problems with time, but so in the challenge list, I kind of just like threw this together like last minute because it was like 5 minutes before the challenge started. But I was like, okay, I'm expecting Tron, so let's play Dispel, and Sitter's Row. I'm not really expecting a whole lot of Boros, so I'll just cut that, and then we'll go from there. But
So, like, moving into the league, what would you play in a league at this time?
I would play my 5-0. I would play my 5-0 list with no counterspell and 3 prohibit. Yeah, and the March Runner. That is what I would play right now. But in my top 32 list, Dispel never was good. I think I played against Tron, but like it never came up. So I'll probably go back to Sage Row for that. And like I said, I never had problems with time, except for this challenge when I didn't have Sage Row Denizen. And then I timed out against Boros. You know,
Yeah.
For the first time in
No.
like 6 months, I finally timed out, and I was like, dang it. It was such a feels bad.
Oh, I didn't know that was what happened.
Yeah,
Wasn't
he
paying enough
was
attention.
he also did like the Boros thing where they start casting strands for no reason.
Yeah,
And
they see the possibility and go for it. I mean,
Yeah.
I played Boros for a while, and I know that I did the same thing.
I also did play
'Cause
Boros.
You're like, this is the only way I'm going to win this game, but there's a possibility I can, so I'm going to go for it.
Yeah,
I need my $2.
I still feel bad for Modern Monkey because my challenge top 8 from like November, I I end up using like relic activations and all that scumbag stuff that I don't like doing anymore. And I was like, and I got the top 8 because of that. And I was like, yeah.
And then you live and learn, and you got to grow.
Yeah,
It's important.
don't do that anymore. Yeah, I mean, people can do whatever, but that kind of stuff is like kind of unsportsmanlike, and it's not really something that I like to.
It's not
enfor-
against the
It's
it's
not.
not against the rules,
Yeah, it's not
but
against the rules for some reason. But
it's uncouth.
yeah, I think Magic Online should be like it's paper, but like kind of enforce the same rules. So,
Yeah, unfortunately they just can't have like
but they
loops
like,
and stuff.
but
If
they
they had
never.
a loop, then it would be easy.
Yeah, they never enforce anything, which is just a bunch of BS. I think.
Maybe. So, let's see. Takeaway here is that Ephemerate is pretty crazy, and you should play it.
Indeed, it is.
We can think about maybe trying to do some sort of rainbow shenanigans, but there's not really that much you want to change in the board. Like, the only thing would be if you're playing prohibits, you might change the excludes to pyroblast, but then you're down against, well, no, it's probably fine.
Yeah, NBC and
I
and
personally
Monarch are
was
already good
playing.
enough.
I'm playing 2 prohibits in the main, and I have 2 excludes. But I'm still playing 2 pyroblasts because I'm splashing for red, and I think that that's really good versus like Tron and any blue deck. But you need the excludes because if you're playing against Boros Monarch or Mono Black Control, you want to be able to counter a not only the Monarch card but like all their value creatures. So exclude is super powerful. So
Yeah, it definitely comes up against those two for sure. I think like NBC is already a good enough matchup to where exclude does not matter. Like it's kind of overkill. It's good against them, but if you get rid of it, it doesn't really hurt the matchup a whole lot. But against Monarch, it kind of gets a
maybe
little bit
just bring
sketchy.
in one.
Like
Yeah.
like against Monarch, yeah, it gets a little bit sketchy.
When you can exclude a core Skyrfisher and instead of them having a 2/3 and a card, you get like a 2-for-1.
Yeah,
That's very, very good.
and then you just keep
in
on
that deck.
looping it too. Oh, the value.
But Prohibit is super, super good against them because it counters literally everything in their deck. So that's very powerful. It's hard to say like what you want to do. And then the only thing like to consider moving forward as far as like for your list is do you want to start playing Thrivings just so that you can play Counterspell with more ease? Because you could like cut a couple of Chanceries and play Thrivings and then also cut like one of the planes and then just be basically every land taps for blue. And then you could much more easily just hold up Counterspell and Counterspell lock people.
Well, I mean, if I wanted to like play Counterspell, like I could just play more Trico Coves. But I mean, if I play Thriving Lands, I can get splashes, and then splashes open like a whole kind of opportunity there. So it's definitely worth trying out for sure.
One of the things that I was considering, dealing with, I guess, when I was working on the Sanctuary list was like a couple times I was working on lists with prisms, and then I could just have every color, and then you're like, I don't even know what I want to put in my sideboard. Like, there's just too many good cards.
I don't even think you need Prism anymore. Like, you have Astrolabe on lands now. Of course, it's the worst Astrolabe, but you get the gist.
But when you have, like, you don't want to replace Negate with Pyroblast. Because Negate does so much work for this deck in countering things that matter. Like a Pestilence or any enchantment stuff and the draw spells from Elves and Walls, and it's hard to say, like, maybe just stick to the blue-white. But I always want to be more splashy and flashy. So it's hard to toe the edge.
Yeah, I think I still like Negate, and I like Pyroblast in the same list, I think. Because I like Negate just against stuff like Walls and Elves, like we said earlier. Where it's kind of like a catch-all still. But Pyroblast is really good against the fairy decks, which is really nice. So I think if I would play Pyroblast, I would still play Negate.
So let's say that you had some sort of perfect mana where you could play Rainbow sideboard. Theoretically, just changing the mana, not changing your main board. Let's say you had 3 prohibits and not the counterspell. What would you change in the sideboard?
I think for
Would
sure.
you cut like a Nature's Chant and negate for 2 pyros?
Well,
Or would you like get rid of the lone missionaries for weathers?
I think the Ephemerate lists have a much worse affinity matchup. So I think I would probably play Gorilla Shaman. I'd probably cut like a couple of lone missionaries for those. I'd probably play a couple Pyroblasts and cut a negate and dispel for those. And not really sure if there's like anything else you like specifically need to play. I think I know I've seen Bird play Claws of Wirewood, which is a really good answer to Monarch. It doesn't kill the Monarch card, but it's really good against the deck itself because it can kill Woodhawks and Skyfishers. So that could definitely be worth a shot too.
I'm looking at the 5-0 list sideboard right now. And I think like if you were going to go rainbow, you'd have to kind of spread out a little bit. So you would probably want to cut and exclude the 2 lone missionaries and a nature's chant, and then potentially a negate. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 5 cards. And then you could like put in. Do you think that Weather the Storm would be better than Lone Missionary if you had perfect mana
No.
in this list? No?
The reason I say that is Ephemerate.
Okay, so there's no reason to do that, so those just stay. So then you're thinking about taking out an Exclude and a Nature's Chant, maybe a Negate. But the Nature's Chants are pretty good. You can get by with 1.
See,
2 is really good if you need it.
The flex slots right now are 2 Missionary, Sage Rodenzen, Exclude, 1 Negate, 1 Blue Metal Blast or Hydro Blast, and 1 Nature's Chant. So like half the sideboard's pretty flex.
So you just have to think about what you want to kill the most.
Pretty
what
much.
you want to deal with.
And I think
Affinity has been tough. But like if you can live to Stonehorn lock them, you can generally win.
Yeah, it kind of depends though. We said this in an earlier episode, but they just went on so many axes that it's kind of hard to just focus on one thing and then try to do the other thing. Like they probably have like Atok Fling and you're trying to Stonehorn lock them, so it kind of gets difficult there. But I think I kind of came to the conclusion that like with the Rainbow sideboard, almost everything's kind of replaceable. It doesn't mean it's better, but it's kind of replaceable. It's just the same blue-white. Because, like, Pyroblasts, you can play Negate or Dispel, and then Weather the Storm, Gorilla Shaman, or something like that. That too. Yeah, like a Gorilla Shaman, that's not really replaceable. So there's some things in Rainbow sideboard that are not, like, really replaceable. But, like, Pyroblasts and I don't know, like stuff like Pyroblast and that are pretty replaceable for sure.
Yeah. I think you probably only need 2 counterspells that can deal with Dinrova in the list. So that's just something to think about too. That's what we were doing before. Especially like if you're not worried too much about all your lands. Like if they're Dinroving 1 land and you lose it, that's not as big of a deal as Dinroving a bounce land.
Yeah. Which is also like a reason why I stopped playing 6 bounce land fams. Because Dinrova's a pain.
Yeah.
And with 4 bounce lands, it's like actually kind of beatable. It's much better than playing 6.
You just win earlier, faster, stronger. Never let them play anything. Just counter everything.
Just a lot.
The problem in that is like when you have 3 pyros and they have 3 pyros, like no one gets to land anything, but no, you can't win a counter war because you both just have pyros.
Yeah, which is why that's why I like Dispel a little bit. But it's only really good with like teachings. That's what I think. Because like against Tron, they can like Pyroblast or Moldrifter, and they get teachings for Dispel. It's kind of hard to find your Singleton Dispel.
So do you have any thoughts on this moving forward? Are you going to keep playing this and try to get 5-0 number 2?
Yeah, this is definitely the list that I've been playing a lot. I haven't really changed much, so I'm probably just going to keep running it like this. And
You're taking a little bit of a detour to play mono black Tron.
Oh yeah. I've been playing a little bit of that, courtesy of a Raptor 56. I ended up changing some stuff, went 5-0. Really shouldn't have, because that deck is a pile. But
Yeah.
that was great. That was great.
That's a kind of an interesting thing about the meta right now is everyone's just kind of like pushing the limits again. Even though we know that some things are way too busted, it's like, okay, how busted can they be?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend watching Raptor's video on that. It is definitely a good watch for sure.
I think we covered all the bases, and we can basically say that Ephemerate is pretty busted, and Familiars is fun.
Yeah, I think Familiars is still well positioned, which is pretty good.
Yeah, it's great because there's only 3 people playing it, so no one's gonna get it banned.
Exactly. It'll always be safe.
So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
You can find my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Zimplfy, or twitter.com/Zimplfy1, and Discord as well. And Callie, where can we find your socials at?
I'm Callie Kais on Discord and Reddit, and then also on YouTube is youtube.com/Callie Kais. And if you see me on Magic Online, my screen name is Satan.Raken, which is a old handle, but still holds up. And say hi. I have actually been seeing a couple people in the leagues that have said that they would listen to the podcast, and that's been pretty cool. So thank you, everybody. And we're excited to keep sharing what we learn and hopefully hear from some cool people about some more fun lists.
Peace.
Bye.